Hello everyone, it's Ian Robb, and today I want to discuss the state of the format by talking about each of these 6 cards, because each of them are very important when discussing what decks are good or what decks are bad, and how to adjust your decks. So the first one I have pictured here, I don't think is the most important as in you play it or not, but I think it's a very important topic to discuss with what has won the last event Stuttgart, which is Dawn Charizard, which is a deck that is very centered around Noctowl and Pidgeot to generate big combos with Charizard EX, Dusknoir, and Brier. So Team Rocket's Watchtower is a very interesting card to me because Team Rocket's Watchtower can completely shut down Dawn Charizard and also Pidgeot Charizard, but less so because how the deck functions. You don't need a Stadium turn 1 to, or excuse me, turn 2 to play the game, so Watchtower doesn't work as reliably as it does against Dawn Charizard with 2 copies of Area 0. So Watchtower is a very powerful card due to the biggest weakness of Dawn Charizard being that you're very much a combo deck, which means that you need access to Pidgeot plus Noctowl really every single turn to be able to play the game because, well, if you do not have a way to answer these, usually this deck can beat most decks in the format. So Watchtower gives decks like Goldango or Gardevoir a way to handle the deck a lot better than previously. While I'm acting very positive and saying that the card is very good, I actually think it's not that good of a tech card, is what I have discovered in decks that can still beat Charizard enough of the time where it's not really worth playing. So, what do I mean by this? Goldango is a deck that, while in theory it doesn't look that good against Charizard, the thing is that just taking a prize on your first turn in the game, or excuse me, just even going 5 to 6 with no 2 prizers in play, is really hard for Charizard to beat because the problem is that their prize map as a Charizard player oftentimes will be take a 2 prize knockout with, excuse me, a 1 prize knockout with a 2 prizer. Whenever you take a good knockout with Solrock, so you're 5 to 5, you take a knockout with whatever Pokemon you want that turn. Usually it's like a Goldango to go 3 to 5, and then to knock out your Goldango, go 3 to 3. You take a 2 prize knockout, 1 to 3. Charizard loses. So that's why you don't really need access to Watchtower, since you're going to win most of your games where you take the first prize against Charizard anyways. So I don't think it's really worth it. And the only way really to lose to Charizard, in my experience so far, has been Chi-Yu, or if Charizard gets the first prize, if they like start Terapagos or get Terapagos inactive, they're playing Dawn. So I just don't really think Watchtower is worth it. Similarly with Gardevoir, I don't think the card is really worth it either because you have enough ways to win the matchup. You have Monkey Dory, Mind Bend damage, or excuse me, Adrenaline Brain. You have Mega Diancie, which is very powerful if your opponent's unable to set up Dusknoir. And you have things like you're playing Jellicent, Devo, or you're not playing Jellicent, things like Drifloon, or just another high power attack like Mega Diancie can be quite good. So you don't really need to have access to Watchtower to beat these decks. The only deck that has to play it is Enzork because otherwise you'll always lose to Charizard. Cornerstone Ogrepon EX is a card that I've seen a lot of talk about, and the weird thing is that it's really only Goldango that needs to be concerned about it. I also think Enzork, but I don't think it's worth teching for it, which I'll go into next. But Goldango lists are sometimes cutting Mega Lopunny or Mega Mawile, and the thing is that even though Cornerstone Mask Ogrepon EX is a very scary card, I don't think it's worth being scared about because the thing is that all the lists I see online for Goldango are all running 1 Mega, which Cornerstone Mask doesn't beat. So why would a lot of people show up with these Cornerstone Mask centric decks is how I look at it going into at least Toronto and these other upcoming events. I know that it's the same thing said near Las Vegas and toward one with Mega Box, but I just don't think Mega Box is really a deck that smart players are going to be want to play for events like Toronto. So if you're thinking about cutting the Mega, I think it's totally reasonable to do that, just due to how weak Mega Box is really overall, in my opinion. Next card I have here pictured is Frillish. I know this is a little bit different than what has been the past where it says you just play Jellicent and Gardevoir, but the thing is with the printing of Mega Diancie, Jellicent EX has gotten a lot worse because in the Gardevoir Mirror match, Mega Diancie just is a very powerful response to a Jellicent, so you don't always have to now play Jellicent for the mirror, because before there was no way to really one-shot a Jellicent outside of Mega Gardevoir EX that didn't involve tools, so you couldn't put down tools. So my opinion is that now is worth playing Frillish in your more Turo-centric Gardevoir decks, like what I've been thinking about playing for Toronto, just due to how against Goldango it can allow you sometimes to run them out of energy, and also it's just a very generally useful card, even in the mirror, with there's plays like use Knockout Screamtail Frillish. Your opponent can't really do anything, and they're forced to knock out your Frillish, which is quite good. So it's overall a really good tech card in Gardevoir, even if you don't play Jellicent EX in your deck. And that's why I also have Jellicent EX pictured here, because it's now, in my opinion, more of a tech card than a must-include for Gardevoir. So those two cards really go together, but I wanted to discuss them. So I have Brier pictured here, which isn't really a tech card like the others, but I think it's very important to talk about when talking about the state of the format, because that is how Charizard becomes a good deck, is Brier. Because no other deck in the format can take 4 prizes in 1 turn as well as Charizard can, with the combination of Dusknoir and Brier. So I think that really just allows Charizard to be a very powerful deck, and in my opinion, one of the best decks, due to how Brier really can turn the game around even if you're in a very bad position. So I just have the card pictured here because I wanted to talk about how good Brier is and how other decks need to make sure they can handle Charizard going forward, due to just how good the card is right now, because with item lock being a little bit more down due to how Gardevoir is kind of a worse deck right now, excuse me, at least Jellicent, because it's kind of getting outpowered by other decks like Goldango and Charizard. So you can now play more heavy item-based Charizard decks and feel quite happy. The last card is Professor Turo Scenario. Kind of goes into the, do you want to have an answer to Cornerstone Ogrepon kind of slot for metagame cards, and I think that right now there's a lot less retreat lock due to there just isn't any straight Dragapult like there used to be, and there is much less, in my opinion at least, Mega Box, because Cornerstone Ogrepon's a little bit worse, so you don't have as much Yveltal running around. So if there is a time where you don't really want to play Professor Turos in your like Gardevoir deck, I think it's quite reasonable to cut. But if you're playing a deck still like Goldango, you still have to include the card due to how it's a very important aspect of how you beat a lot of decks, being able to go from a 2 prize board to 1 prize board, and also just healing your Goldango makes your opponent basically skip a turn. So it's a very good card in that deck due to things like that. But in other decks, it's much more cuttable now due to that. So why did I picture 6 cards and talk about them? The game right now is really just about 3 decks, in my opinion: Charizard, Gardevoir, and Goldango. So these are all the key cards in these decks really right now, and I think that the format going forward, how you're going to see it evolve, is you're going to see, I think, a little bit more Zoroark. Even though I dislike Zoroark, it does technically do quite well against all those decks. Does well, not as much Charizard, but at least the other two, and it can beat Charizard. So I think Zoroark's going to see a little more popularity, even though I dislike the deck. And Gardevoir is going to evolve from this more Jellicent deck to a much more toolboxy version, where you're just going to see not really Jellicent and just how the game's going to play out. It's really just about Monkey Dory and setting up whatever your best attackers are in the matchup to either disrupt your opponent or take an aggressive stance. And we're going to see the best deck, Goldango, really, I think, dominate this next event, Toronto, at least, due to, even though I'm talking about how great the deck is and there's all these tech cards you can play like Cornerstone, I think people are going to disrespect it a little bit too much due to how I think that people think Goldango is this easy deck and the deck is just one you can disrespect. I really disagree. Goldango is just by far the best deck in my opinion because of how powerful and consistent it is. You need Lunatone and Solrock in your deck is fully set up. So there is no way that you can disrespect Goldango, and it will be the best deck going forward. So Pokemon's a really interesting spot right now too, where all these decks are very difficult to play. So it's very important also to play a deck that you know well, which means that even though there's the big 3 I talked about, if you're more comfortable with something like Dragapult than one of those decks, you should still be playing Dragapult due to how I'm talking about this from matchups are a little unfavored with Dragapult. It's not as bad as, just unplayable. It's just a little awkward, and that means that you should be playing Dragapult if it is the deck that you know the best. But that's all I have for today, just talking about the meta and some cards that are pretty important right now. and I plan on going back to my regular content schedule starting soon. Next time, Ian out.